Alright, this is going to be a video from my carjacking on October 29th, 2023. So exactly 2 years ago from today. Basically, it was a Sunday night. I was getting back from the grocery store like 6 p.m. Getting out of my car to go to my apartment in St. Paul. Had groceries in my hand. This guy comes up from behind me, asks for my keys. I tell him no. He pulls out a gun and forces it at my stomach. And this whole time I'm like trying to make my voice loud, be like, no, go away, you're not getting my car, and all that. So he ends up getting my keys, and then he also sees the phone that's in my pocket. So he takes out my phone, smashes it on the ground, though it's like dusk time, like sunset and getting dark. So my phone, I don't know where it went, somewhere on the ground, and couldn't find it. So within like the 10 seconds that he does that, he gets into my car, whips out of the parking lot, and drives somewhere else. So I'm trying to call for help since I don't have a phone or my keys, can't get into my building, can't get into my apartment, can't call the police saying that this happened. Finally, a neighbor comes up and says that he heard what was going on, and he lets me call the police. And they come, they look for any other people that could be in the area, and that was kind of the end of that part. So come like a week later, we're still looking for my car, still no reports of it. And then I finally get a call from the police that they found it. It ended up being totaled, like really smelling of weed, and I don't know, they must have like driven it to a field or something, because it was like covered in mud, and on the inside, the interior was messed up, the undercarriage is broken. And I ended up getting a call from the police department, like with fingerprints, like identifying stuff that was mine and stuff that was theirs. They left just a bunch of crap, and like I had nothing in there to steal, so they didn't steal any of that. Come like another week later, I think, we found out that some guy in a blue sedan had shot and killed a gang member up in North Minneapolis. Yeah, the gang members in North Minneapolis, I don't really know any background of them besides like highs and lows, and it's just like kind of young people, because this guy ended up being 18 and had a prior conviction. Like 2 months before or something, he robbed his uncle up in Golden Valley and stole all these puppies worth like $10,000, something really stupid, so an aggravated robbery. But he was still out on the street, so he was able to carjack me and then shoot another guy in the same area, which is crazy. So he wasn't in jail, and that sucks. So that brings me to the Democratic National Convention that happened this past summer in August. So her name, Inska Rahman, that was really butchered. But she basically said on this stage that like most people aren't worried about carjackings or robbery or any of this stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm one of those people. I kind of care.
And crime is going down, our communities are becoming safer. It's because of us. And you can see, you want to talk about the crime issues voters care about. Where does Trump go? Migrant crime, carjackings, the really lurid, awful stuff that is a crazy, crazy visual. Don't take the bait, because most Americans are more worried about how are we going to address mental health issues, the visible homelessness that we see on streets, and how do we deal with mental health and other issues that drive the sort of random incidents that scare all of us. That's what you should be talking about. That's where you should be focused. Don't take the bait in talking about migrant crime or carjackings or the things that actually don't matter to that many Americans.
That kind of just brings me to the point of know who you are going to be voting for. If they are people who are tough on crime, if they are people who are very low on crime, like given all these cash bail stuff. So earlier this summer, in the summer 2025, in May, I believe it was, I had to go to a grand jury. So it was me sitting in a room being a witness with like 30 other people, the lawyers, the attorney general, all that stuff. asking questions about what happened. This ended up being a RICO case because it is gang violence. So that means it is like a very important, like federal level stuff about getting these gang members into prison for their crimes and getting gang members disassembled or disestablished, dismantled is the word, dismantled in the streets, and not only in Minneapolis, but in other areas of the country. So I think that's very important of kind of where this story is leading. Yeah, so basically in all this time, I had to pay off some of that car loan because it was stolen, which doesn't make any sense. But like, since it was stolen, I still had to pay some of the loan that I still owed on it and also get a new phone. And it's just really annoying. Like, me as a teacher, I need to have a car and a phone to go to schools and homes and do lessons, music lessons, and all this stuff. And it just really sucked. So, in the end, I'm saying vote accordingly to who you want representing your life in the city or in the suburbs. If they are tough on crime, if they are not tough on crime, because I think crime is really important of how like my students grow up. You know, like if they're in this bad environment where there's shootings and arguments and all this stuff, like it's not healthy to grow up in that scenario. And I don't know, part of my class is just being kind, being funny, being proactive in how kids are learning and how they're developing as a person and as a student. And there's just a lot of things. So in the last part, what you can do if you are in this scenario of being robbed or being carjacked, which same thing, you should have in your car an air tag. It's really important to hide somewhere in your car, and then you can access it on your phone. Like any time of day, I can access where the GPS of my car is. If I'm out of town and I have to leave my car in a parking lot, or if I'm like in a different town and walking a few blocks away or taking the bus or whatever, and then just being like away from that area, that I can still check on if the car is there. That's really important. Having a dash cam is really important, like having an interior and seeing who's in it, or like on the outside if you're ever involved in a crash or anything of that nature, and just having that video evidence. Being aware of your surroundings. So as soon as you get out of your car, you're looking around, you're seeing if anything is suspicious, if you see neighbors you know, and you're fine with them, or if you see a dog or whatever. Any of that nature. And the last thing is to yell loud. I found that works the best if you're ever in this situation. So just like use your voice, bring attention to yourself and the situation that you're in. Generally, people have windows open or somebody is on the street and they're like, what's going on? Why is this person being so loud? They're not just talking to this person. They're having some kind of argument or debate or altercation, as we'll say. So I think that's everything. I didn't get this condensed down very far, but there's some little articles in here that I hope you've read, and I hope you have an insight of to what some situations can be. Yeah, if you have anything else, you can message me and I'll send you a link to some of these documents. And that's all I have. Stay safe.